Hello and welcome back to Weighing In Season 2, Episode 9. Back for a quick update, just me today. Ollie has been incredibly busy this week and we were both very busy last week, which is why we missed the episode. But I'm here today to give you all a quick update about what has been going on in the LCS and LEC. In the LCS, we are getting through the new mid-season showdown. That's the new spring playoffs name, basically. And we've had 2 matches last week and 3 more matches to have this week. And some of them are absolute bangers from last week. We had TL and TSM taking on each other and Cloud9 and 100 Thieves taking on each other. Let's start with the TSM TL game. I have to say, I thought this was a really disappointing game from TSM. Losing 3-1 against Liquid was not the way that I expected this best of 5 to go. Even if Liquid had won, I would have expected a better showing from TSM. But outside of Game 3, it was just bad from TSM in so many ways. Even just coming into the drafts, I thought were pretty crap in basically every game from TSM. They weren't really responding very well to what Team Liquid were picking. They kind of just came in with their set strategy every game instead of actually adapting throughout the series, which is why I think Team Liquid are able to get their first and second wins so quickly and easily. And then finally, when they did change in Game 3, it didn't take very long for Team Liquid to adapt and go, okay, this is what we need to do, come back, smash Game 4, that's okay. Whereas if TSM had actually adapted after the first game, we could have seen this go to 5 games in theory, and that would have been a really interesting 5th game to see who would have come out on top. But unfortunately, Team Liquid just outclassed them in almost every role. I think the thing that TSM really struggled with was side lane pressure. We've seen how incredibly good Alfari can be when playing some of the side lane champions that he is known for and has been known for a really long time, and that's what we saw him on in this best of 5. He had amazing games on the Gnar, the Gangplank, the Aatrox, really kind of pulling TSM apart and not letting them have the team fighting deathball kind of comps that I think TSM were looking at having when they were drafting Seraphine in 3 of the 4 games. But it's really intelligent, I think, for Team Liquid to understand that's one of the ways they can use Alfari to stop this, and combining that with a really good set of champions for Jensen, either matching the control mages, taking the Ahri into the Lucian and then taking the TF to help that side pressure, picking the TF to help with that side lane pressure to really exploit where we know that TSM have struggled in the past. And, TSM weren't able to follow up on the draft, all the players. There was no ability for them to match that side lane pressure, and it just meant that TL could pick them apart every single game. And I really do think that although TSM struggled and they underperformed, in my opinion, Team Liquid are definitely stepping up a lot. I think Tactical in particular looked a lot better this series. We've been really harsh on him throughout the spring split with some of the poor decisions that he's been making in games. And admittedly, he did have a pretty big in on the Tristana. Overall, he looked a lot better in this best of 5. And so I think, along with Jensen starting to step up in playoffs, this could be a really dangerous Team Liquid for every team to face. The other match we saw at the weekend was Cloud9 3-0ing 100 Thieves, and I think this was the more predictable and the more by-the-books best of 5 that we experienced from the LCS this week. Again, it just looked like 100 Thieves have been outclassed here, as they have been by a number of the top-of-the-table teams that they've been playing against recently, and none of the games looked particularly close. It really does seem like 100 Thieves are continuing to drop in their standard of play, while all the other teams around them continue to go up and improve their level of play. I think the Perks playoff buff is is real. Perks had an absolutely incredible best of 5, being named player of the split, the series, the MVP of the series, absolutely slamming on a range of champions as well, which is something that is so incredible to have in this best of 5. Taking the Yone, the Orianna, and the Tristana really gave so much flexibility to the other members of his team, and this is great. This is what we've seen him do on G2, and now he's doing it on Cloud9. Really, really good to see that Perks is stepping up and really fulfilling the kind of promise that we had seen out of him for this team. The other person who I think performed really well and stepped up a lot, all of Cloud9 stepped up. I think that Fudge had a really good first game on Renekton, giving him some of that taking him off some of that tank duty and then putting him back on it for games 2 and 3. We know how well he plays these tanks, and you don't need him to be a super carry in this team when you've got Blabber, Perks and Sven. It's more than okay just to have Fudge be an occasional Renekton lane bully champion when appropriate in the draft, but mainly put him on these tanks. He's performing really well. I love to see it. It's really, really good to see this team prove. And then let's touch on that Cloud9 bot lane. I think they definitely stepped up. I loved the drafts. I thought playing Ezreal twice from Sven was really smart. It gave them some late game and mid game assurance while keeping him super safe against some of the more aggressive and dive champions that 100 Thieves were bringing. And it paired really nicely with the supports that Vulcan is happy to play in the Leona for a more aggressive lane, and the Karma for a more passive, pokey lane bully, but rather than kill focused. And then a Fasting Sinner and Kench game. Again, it's good. The variance, again, from this bot lane is something that we really like to see, and it shows that although Sven played the same champion twice in 2 of these games, it still shows that they were very different styles, and so it again shows that level of flexibility that we really want going into further best of 5s. And I think that'll be really important because the 2 winners, Cloud9 and Team Liquid, will go into the winners final. That's a best of 5. Cloud9, Team Liquid basically are 1 and 2 teams as they stand now in the LCS. We're playing off against each other, and I think if Cloud9 are going to win that, the bot lane really has to step up because they can't be pushed around by Core JJ and Tactical. Those 2 being some of the strongest members on that Team Liquid team will really have to ensure that they don't lose that bot lane. And then kind of the same way that we spoke about TSM losing to Team Liquid, we cannot allow Alphari to get too much of an advantage in those side lanes against Fudge. And I think a lot of pressure is going to be on Fudge because we've seen how much he struggled in the lock-in tournament when the team was a little bit newer, admittedly, but the teams that they struggled against were 100 Thieves and Team Liquid. Someday and Alphari. We've already seen Fudge have a really good best of 5 against Someday. If he can do the same against Alphari, I'll be really impressed, but I think Alphari is a totally different beast to Someday, so we'll have to see exactly how that shapes up. For that best of 5, I think I am going to give it to Cloud9. I think it might end up being not that close, simply because I think whichever team in this scenario comes in with the better prep, the better game plan, and just the better individual play on the day will start to run away with it. So I'll give it a 3-1, but it could go 3-0. I think it could go 3-2, but I would expect a 3-1 in Cloud9's favour. Taking a look at the lower bracket, we've got the 2 teams that lost against the 2 teams from the 5th and 6th seed coming out of the spring split. The first game that we'll be having is going to be Tsm Evil Geniuses. Now that is going to be a very interesting match, and I think it's going to be a lot closer than people may anticipate. Mainly because the way that TSM lost to Team Liquid was this split push, the side lane pressure. And the thing that Evil Geniuses love to do with Impact and Jizuke is side pressure. It's the thing they do incredibly well. They are so good at it. And I think that could become a real problem for TSM if they haven't learnt some of the lessons that they could have from playing against Team Liquid. If they haven't been able to adapt their drafts and prepare in their practice, they might get picked apart again, which would be incredibly surprising considering this is the second place seed from the spring split in Team TSM versus the 5th place seed in Evil Geniuses. 6th place seed against... I can't remember. Anyway, that's not important. You would expect the team coming from the upper bracket, even having just lost, to do better, but I think this one could be significantly closer than many people accepted. However, I would expect TSM to take that best of 5 simply down to individual player skill and the cohesion the team has shown, whereas that's something that EG have lacked in parts of the spring split. The other losers bracket match we have this week is 100 Thieves versus Dignitas. And in this case, I actually think the team from the lower bracket is probably favoured. Dignitas is favoured. 100 Thieves have been struggling so much, and I don't think this loss will have done them any good. Although they did have slightly more consistency in the regular season, I think the variance in playstyles from some of the key members, such as Dardoch on the Dignitas side, gives them the edge in this best of 5. And I wouldn't be surprised to see what many people consider an upset with Dignitas going through to play against TSM in the losers round 2. That's it for the LCS for this episode. Let's just hop over the pond and talk about the LEC. And so looking at the LEC, we didn't have any games last week. So this weekend we're going straight into 3 best of 5s back in the studio for the LEC, which could play a real impact on how some of the teams could perform compared to what they've been doing all the time online so far. Starting with the first match, which is the losers round 1, the 5th and 6th place teams, straight elimination match. We have Fnatic versus SK, and I think this could be surprisingly close. Although Fnatic did beat them twice in the regular season, we have seen some significant inconsistencies from Fnatic this season so far. And so I don't think this is a write-off for the SK players, but I think it really could be affected by the fact that the teams are back on the stage. Lots of the SK guys have not played on the LEC stage before, even having played in the ERLs. I'm not sure how much of that experience will really be transferable. I think that overall, it's easy to argue, even with some of the changes to Fnatic recently, that they have more stage experience. With, that experience, we'll have to see how much it comes into play without a crowd in the venue. I think lots of the SK players had massive pop-off performances, especially Treats. Treats having, I think it's an 82% kill participation in the regular split in the LEC. So if he really can get involved like we've seen him done so many times, I think this team could be very competitive. However, I do think that Fnatic overall are favoured, and if we don't see someone like Treats have a really standout performance from SK, it could be quite one-sided. We could see this go down to, a 3-0 or a 3-1, and that wouldn't necessarily surprise me. They've just got a bit more experience, a slight skill advantage in basically every role. Although it really could go either way, especially if Fnatic are not playing to the top of their game, I would still expect them to, as the favourites, kind of close out that first best 5. The second and third best of fives are both in the upper bracket, and we see Rogue playing against Mad Lions and then G2 facing Schalke. The first match is Rogue versus Mad Lions, and I think this is going to be pretty one-sided. I think both of these games will be pretty one-sided. Rogue beat Mad Lions twice in the regular season. It was pretty convincing, and in the most recent one, it was an absolutely massive performance from Larsen and Hans Sammer, both of those guys popping off. I don't see a way for Mad Lions really to win this. It's definitely going to be pretty one-sided for Rogue, in my opinion. Especially when you consider the fact that Mad have some new players who have not had as much stage experience as others, and the guys who have had stage experience, well, the last time they had their stage experience was at Worlds, where they definitely didn't perform as well as I think some people were expecting. Add the fact that I think the Rogue players are individually more skilled and have had a better, more stable and consistent game plan throughout the spring split, and I don't see a way Mad can beat them. They don't have the playstyle that we've seen take down Rogue. The only team that we've seen have a playstyle to take down Rogue has been G2, and that was through fast-paced plays that really were able to get underneath Rogue before they could implement their game plan, and I don't think that we've seen that against any of the higher tier opponents from Mad Lions, so I think they could really struggle against Rogue, and I think that could be a very easy 3-0 for Rogue. And the final match for the first week of the LEC playoffs is, again, G2 versus Schalke. And although Schalke are one of the only teams to take down G2 in the spring split, I don't expect them to have that much success when it comes to playoffs. I think this is another big mismatch, really. Anyone is unfavoured against G2, but I think Schalke have got an especially bad matchup, especially when you consider how inconsistent they've been. Arguably the most inconsistent team left in playoffs. And again, we have to bring up the fact that some of the newer guys on Schalke have less experience on LAN, and I think that will definitely not be the case for the side of G2, and I argue that G2 will perform significantly better on LAN than we've seen them. It's that classic G2 playoff buff. They take things more serious. We've seen it already with Perks in the LCS. I think this is going to be a pretty big blowout. Not much to say here. It should be a strong 3-0 in the favour of G2. That means that Fnatic will be moving on to the lower bracket to face the lower seed of those two, and then we'll have a G2 versus Rogue in the winners final, which will be an absolutely banging pop-off of a game. I really cannot wait for that. But that's all we have for this episode. Apologies that it's just a short one with me, but we will be back for a full episode next week, so stay tuned for that. This has been episode 9, season 2 of Weighing In.